Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to Edmonton Oilers Throwback 2010 franchise mode here in NHL 25. So last episode, if you did not catch it, we took on the Los Angeles Kings in the first round of the playoffs, and unfortunately we lost, but we did give the Stanley Cup champions quite the run, I would say, because obviously they went on to win the Stanley Cup, of course, but it was a good little run against them, I would say. Obviously, we got all the way back to a Game 7 situation, but unfortunately lost in overtime. We were down 3-1 at one point, so I think it was a good little rally from our team, but unfortunately just could not get that overtime victory. So unfortunately we did not win in the first round, but once again, good playoff experience to go up against a top team like the LA Kings and kind of learn from that going forward. So hopefully this team could obviously continue to grow, and hopefully once our defensive core starts to get a little bit better overall wise, I think this team could maybe get a chance to win that Stanley Cup. So with that said, let's get in your guys' comments, see what you guys have to say about last episode, and then we will get into the 2017 NHL draft. So the first and only comment is from Max Everett, who says, glad Brock Nelson is showing up. Fata and Nate Dogg did a really awesome job in round 1-2. You gave the Stanley Cup champs their toughest challenge. I agree. Just need to hope that your defensive core develops or bring in somebody that can help them take that next step. And yeah, I think the defensive core, obviously being as young as it is, I think obviously right now it's looking pretty good, but obviously we need to make sure that these guys are developing in the right way, or else maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to bring in a veteran to help them out. Right now I think they're developing nicely. As you can see, obviously Falk leading the way as that right-handed defenseman, 25 years of age, but guys like Kalinka are a legit top 4 defenseman, I think, at this point. Same with Zherdev. Moss is, I believe, a top 6 still. Yeah, just barely a top 6. Probably will be a top 4 next season. Metro's still a top 6, and then Mackey's kind of like a depth defenseman almost at this point. He is listed as a top 6, but obviously if he grows like up to an 81-82, this will make this defensive core a lot stronger. But eventually at some point, if this defensive core is not working at all, we could obviously move one of these left-handers probably for a future, or like a higher end kind of defenseman that's maybe a bit older, like 30 years old or something, to kind of help with the development a bit more. We do still have more defensemen in the system as well, though, which is going to be kind of tough to balance because we do have guys like Colton Parayko, who is very close to being an NHL defenseman. We could probably use him as depth next season if we really wanted to. We also have guys like Rodriguez on the right side, CC2, Dolan. So we do have an abundance of defensive prospects. Some of them are unsigned, like the small guy, for instance. So definitely a lot of interesting faces down there, but there is a chance that we'll have to move out some of them just because obviously too many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak. And then our goaltending obviously is pretty decent the way it is. I think our forward group, obviously, I think goal scoring has been a bit of a problem with this team, but I think the way that Brock Nelson fit this team was really nice so far. Obviously, re-signing him is probably one of our top priorities this offseason because he is a pending UFA, and I think he was a fantastic fit here. He was 21 points in 21 games with us during the season, and he was one of our best players during the postseason with 6 points in those 7 games. So we're definitely going to try and re-sign him this offseason because I think he's kind of like that perfect guy for us down the middle, because that gives us basically an opportunity to run Cameron and McKinnon on the same line. Then Nelson could kind of run his own second line. Marcoux could run the third line. And currently Boone Jenner could run that fourth line. So I don't think bringing back Nelson's a bad idea for our team. I think it'll be a nice cost-effective deal. Like, it won't cost us too much, and it should help us kind of spread that offense out throughout that second line. Like I said, when we made that trade, Jankumovs kind of was more of a goal scorer. He didn't really spread around the offense, but I think Nelson did a better job at that. So anyways, with that said, I think we're ready to get into the 2017 draft. I don't really know what to pick up in this draft because we kind of have prospects in a lot of areas already. Like, we don't really need too much, but we might end up using some of our picks anyways, because you can see at the moment here we do have 1 first-round pick, of course, at 18th overall. We do have 2 second-round picks, 3 thirds, but afterwards you have 2 fourths, 2 fifths, and a 7th. So I'm thinking we might use our early picks, and in these later picks we might end up looking to trade some of these away just because, honestly, we have too many prospects at the moment, so we kind of need to limit that a little bit. And if we go to like our forward depth chart right now, you can kind of see that we aren't apparently strong in top 6 forwards. Like, offensively, they're saying that we're not a strong team, but that's compared to the rest of the league. It's kind of neutral at the moment. So I'm hoping for some more growth for next season, so that way we could actually be listed as a strength. But you look at our top prospects on forward, and our forward prospects, it says it's strength. So we are strong there. We don't really need anything. We go to the defensive core. It says that we're an E-rated defense right now. It says we actually have a top 4 and a top 6 weakness, but it is because we are kind of developing this young defensive core at the moment. But listed in top prospects and defensive prospects, it once again says strength. So technically, we just need to take that next step by getting these guys growing, and I think that's the most important thing. And of course, our goaltending is also actually listed as strong. Our backup is listed as a weakness, but I think Ruskovich did a really good job again this season. Obviously, not as good as last year, but I think he did a decent enough job this season. Once again, McClement is getting close to making it too, so I think our goaltending situation's fine. It's just more about that defensive core kind of taking that next step. And hopefully we could find a way to get it some more growth. We don't really need to draft more defensive prospects or forward prospects, but we're probably going to draft them. And maybe those are the type of guys that eventually get into our lineup, or they end up getting dealt for veteran players that could help us out as well. So with that said, let's hop into this 2017 draft and see what we could snag up here. But like I said, I think we might end up trading the later picks, but these early picks, we might as well use them just to see if we can find anything with them. So did I have anything pinned in the last episode? I don't remember, to be honest. Oh, yeah, I did. Okay, so Rick Romano is potentially a low elite. No guarantees on that, but he is listed as a gem. There was Cool, who was kind of interesting as a late kind of selection. There was also Hartikainen, who we were looking at maybe as that first-round pick. Should have a decent overall. Might only be a top 6 forward, though. There's also Isaiah Peterson. Don't really need defensive help that much, but I mean, we might as well take another right-hander. Right-handers are pretty valuable. And then there's also Peckham as well, who could end up being a low elite defenseman. So I don't know if this is going to be the strongest draft class, but I'm really just hoping that we could kind of find some players that maybe give us a chance to continue developing our current roster, and those guys continue developing in the AHL, and then eventually we kind of replace some of them with the younger guys. But with that said, I think we will get into this. So let's take a look at this year's top 5 of the 2017 draft class and see what goes first overall. So the first pick going to the Yotes is Petrovic. He is a right wing 2A forward, 82 overall at 17. Looking pretty solid all around, as you'd expect for a 2A forward, with no X factors, which is kind of surprising, but he goes to the Coyotes. Vancouver at number 2 is going to select a defenseman, so the first defenseman off the board in Marcus Leonard. 2-way defenseman, looks pretty balanced, has really good shot power, so maybe a goal-scoring kind of defenseman, but will be interesting to see how that guy develops there. Definitely something Vancouver needs, because Vancouver is kind of on the down rise, of course, or not really down rise, I guess, down play. So, yeah, Leonard going to the Vancouver Canucks. All right, Ottawa at number 3, what are they going to select? They selected Mers, who's a left-wing 2A forward. Joel Mers. Once again, looking pretty balanced because he's a 2A forward. And once again, no X factors, which is kind of surprising. He's a pretty big boy, 6'4", 199. So far, nobody has an X factor in this top 5, which is kind of surprising. Maybe means it's a weaker class. Maybe that means there's some random steals in it, but not looking too crazy so far. Anyways, Buffalo at number 4 in 2017. What are they going to select? Kerslake. So the first center off the board, I guess. Marty Kerslake, center playmaker. Looks pretty balanced as well. Has really good passing, of course, as you'd expect. Yep, pretty nice pick up there. No X factors once again. And then finally at 5th overall, the Detroit Red Wings are going to select Morales, who is a DFD. 77 overall, Terry Morales. All right. So that's kind of interesting that none of these top 5 players had X factors, but they definitely will probably start to generate them in their rookie season, my guess. All right, with that said, let's simulate to our next pick here at number 18 and see if we could get any steals here. Let's see what went before our pick, just in case. A couple top 6 forwards, top 4D, a high top 6D going 13th overall is not great. Looks like Toronto drafted himself a guy named Renberg, which makes me think of Mikhail Renberg, which is kind of funny. So shout out to Toronto. Aside from that, that is basically the draft class so far. So it's just pretty basic outside of the top 5. No elite players have been taken at this point. So hopefully we can find the first one, which might be Marko Hartikainen. He looks like to me like a guaranteed top 6 forward, but he is 2 years out. So he's probably going to be like a 68, 69, maybe even a 70 with medium 6 potential, my guess. We could also look into guys like Heinrich if we really wanted to, but I don't really know if that's much better. Actually, yeah, it's not really that much better because puck skills for Hartikainen are better. Skating's better also on Hartikainen, so I prefer Hartikainen over Heinrich. And then Crombeen is pretty much the same type of thing almost as Heinrich, but a little bit more not physical, defensive. So I think we're going to lean towards Hartikainen with our selection unless Prince looks really good, which he doesn't. So let's go for the Finn, Marco Hartikainen. Why not? We like drafting our Finns here, so. And he is a 67 overall, so pretty much exactly where I was expecting, and kind of expected that he was supposed to go around this point too. So it's not like it was a bad pick. 67 overall, left-wing playmaker, so maybe this guy could be a decent setup dude. But for right now, we won't see how he develops for quite a while, because he's probably not going to be AHL bound next season. We probably will have to wait at least one season before we play him at maybe the minor league level. So not a bad selection there, but obviously pretty much basic as you'd expect for this point in time. All right, let's simulate your next pick at 48. See if we could get any steals here. Before our selection, looks like it was still more top sixes. Payerson, who we were looking at potentially as a pick, maybe we should have taken him first round. 65 overall, low lead offensive defenseman. That would have been kind of something. Yeah, this guy's probably going to end up becoming really good. So I kind of wish maybe we took him first round instead of that top six board, but oh well. Conley was also low lead, but we didn't have any information on him, so I don't really care too much about missing that one, but definitely kind of sucks. There's a medium elite goalie. Don't really need elite goalies, though. And anything else crazy? Let's take a look at late first round as well, since we're at it. So afterwards, the Rangers took Heinrich, who is basic. Same with Crombeen, Prince. Yeah, this draft class is looking okay in terms of depth, but it's not like the most craziest draft class we've seen. We've definitely seen a lot better ones out there. So this next selection, we could go for a defenseman if we really wanted to in Braden Davis, but I think we had somebody pinned around this point, unless it was that guy I was just mentioning at low lead. It might have been. Let's see. Yeah, it probably was, because these guys aren't supposed to go for a while, so we're probably going to have to take somebody else instead, which means it probably comes down to either Coleman or Davis based on this, or we could go off the board and just grab ourselves probably an elite goalie. He probably has a high overall too, but do I really need an elite goalie prospect? Probably not. Let me actually call a timeout quickly. And we'll look at our goaltending rotation that we currently have and see if we actually need it. We do actually have back-to-back selections here, so we can take that elite goalie if we really want to. But at the moment, obviously, Vasilevsky's our number one guy. There's no way we're going to replace him yet. McClement's getting kind of close. Maybe another year out or something. Samson has elite potential too, but I don't know if he's going to reach it at this rate. 58 at 19 is kind of low. Dorsett's obviously got elite potential, but he's a 66 at 22. I don't think he's going to reach it. And then Ruskovich is kind of like a short-term backup option. So I think McClement will end up being the backup in a few years. Ruskovich obviously would probably leave by then. Dorsett might not reach that potential, so maybe he's more of a minor league guy. Samson, same type of boat. It's tough to say. Like, these guys could be trade bait maybe if we really wanted to. So maybe we will take a goaltender here, or at least with the next selection after this pick. So let's make our selection here. And do we want to go for the goalie yet? There's also this guy who's not even scouted at all, but I don't know how good he actually is. I think we'll probably lean towards the goalie with the second selection, which is going to be Victor Wilford. But with this first selection, I don't really know still who we want to take. This guy might be 2 years out, but is he a lowly guaranteed? Tough to say. Zykov is 4 years out. Makes me feel like he could be a low lead as well, but it's really tough to say. Stamkos as a defenseman, probably guaranteed top 4. Byron Baker, don't know anything on him. There's also Samuel Lahtinen, who is a 4-year-old guy. Might be a medium top 9. Marcel Mathieu is a 4-year-old dude. Schubert, Trojanovic are medium 9s guaranteed. I would say maybe we go for another defenseman. I mean, we have a lot of left-handers, though. Right-handers are the more valuable one. We did just also take a Ford first round, which was a left winger. This guy's 20 years old, and he looks actually kind of interesting. 2 years out at 20. He might be only a top 6, but being 20 years old already and 2 years out, that's not that bad. But obviously, he's going to be probably a really high overall because he's only a couple of years older. So we're going to take a chance on this 20-year-old. I don't know if it's going to be a great pick, but since he's 20 and he's only listed as 2 years out, maybe he can make it faster than some other people. So Cademan Coleman, interesting name. Let's take you. Boom. 67 overall. So he's literally as good as our first round pick, which is not great considering he's 2 years older. So I don't really know if I like this selection too much, but if he develops fast enough, maybe he's good. He's got good passing, actually, 85 passing. So maybe if he gets that offensive awareness up there, he could become something decent as well. But he's another left-wing playmaker, so he's basically just as much as good as that first round pick. So probably should have went with the defenseman maybe instead, but is what it is. I think this next selection we're going to just go for the goaltender and Victor Wilford. I know there's a goalie projected to go before him, but he looks like he's going to have some high overalls. He might not be medium elite because of his overall, but it's really tough to say. 4 years out, it's not too bad. Obviously, that will give us time to develop him. So let's take Victor Wilford with this next selection. 59 overall, medium elite. So yeah, not a super high overall. But he is going to be a nice little project, just in case any of the other goalies don't really pan out or anything. But who knows? Maybe our goaltending rotation is going to be an ever revolving door, so to speak. I'd like to hold on to Vasilevsky long term, but if he gets too expensive, obviously having these elite goalies in case is not a bad option. So with that said, let's move to our next pick at number 63, which is my favorite number. So maybe we could get a decent steal here. Let's see. Who do we have around this point? There is still some medium 4 supposed to go, but he's probably not that great. He's not that bad, maybe. There's also McEachran. Low 4, 3 years out. Bednar's. I don't feel like I need to take that much defenseman, to be honest, though. We do still have these guys that I pinned. You know what? We probably should start taking some of these dudes. We do have multiple thirds, but we might as well take these guys early and then, like I said, trade away our later picks. So let's go for Rick Romano here and see if he's a low lead. He's a center, so it will give us more forward depth potentially, but let's take Rick Romano. And he is a low lead 63. Nice selection there, okay. That definitely makes up for that second round pick where it was a top 6 that was 20 years old because, yeah, Rick Romano looks pretty nice. He's actually got almost like an AHL/NHL ready shot close to it too, so I like that selection. That's actually a pretty lucky pick. And there is a good chance that this guy, he's not going to become probably a center just because his faceoffs. We could definitely utilize some more as a left winger if we really want to, but I do like that selection just for the offensive depth purposes, just in case we end up losing people and all that. So let's simulate to our next pick at 78 here and then take the next guy. We do actually have back-to-back picks here as well in this third round. So we will probably take the other guys we want and then literally trade everything else away. So Michael Kuhl, he's another guaranteed low lead, 19 years old, not supposed to go till quite late. He's not going to be super good out of the gate, but it does give us more depth down the middle, just in case we need to get rid of, say, somebody like Brock Nelson down the road, or if Cameron eventually leaves the team, which I don't think will ever happen, but let's take Kuhl and see how good he is. 60 overall, and he is a lowly grinder, which is kind of interesting, so maybe that's the perfect kind of thing we need for a fourth line, is a lowly grinder. I don't mind it. He doesn't have great face-off stats, but he might be able to help us out defensively and physically on that fourth line. So I like that selection, the German grinder and Kuhl. And we do actually have another pick here as well, so we'll probably go with the other low lead guy as well. Or potentially low lead, we don't know for sure on that. But he is listed as a gem, so I feel like he probably is. And there's a guarantee that he's an offensive defenseman. So if he is a low elite offensive defenseman, we've had some great luck with those. Obviously, my Islanders series, we traded for Houghton back in the day, and he was like a 6th round selection, like this guy's projected to be around. So who knows? Maybe Christian Peckham could be somebody decent. So let's bring him in and see if he's actually a low lead or if he's like a low 4 instead. He is a low lead, 48 overall, so a very low starting point. But him being only 18, obviously, he's got a lot of room to grow. So that could be an exciting pick if he develops nicely. If he doesn't develop nicely, maybe he's more of a fringe NHL guy, high-end AHL scoring offensive defenseman, but hoping for, obviously, an NHL defenseman at some point. So those are some nice picks here. Our next pick is 97th overall, which makes me feel like we should probably still draft with this selection just because Connor McDavid and all. But I don't think there's going to be much more good players in this draft class at this point. Barnaby could be a lowly, but he's probably not. We might have to sort by potential here just to see. This guy could be a lowly too, Wilson Hartman, but tough to say. There's also a goaltender in Hodgson. Don't really need more goalie prospects that much. This guy is listed as a gem, but like I said, we don't really need goalie prospects that much. This guy's guaranteed to be medium elite. We could just take him for the value, but he's 20 years old, so don't really know about that. And then guarantee lowly-wise, there's no guaranteed lowlies. We could take a chance on Barnaby, but I honestly have no guarantees on any of these dudes, and they probably are going to end up just being low top nines. So I think we're going to trade away the rest of our selections here. So if I go offer trade, actually, let's go find trade just to see what teams would throw me for fun. But I'm going to get rid of the rest of our picks. We just have so many prospects and stuff like that it's not worth holding on to all these selections with. So let's add all these picks. Nobody's going to find me a trade offer, though, so we're going to have to just send it to another team for like a future second round pick, which is not really that bad. Nice little way to move up in the next year's draft if we want to. So let's go call a timeout just because we're kind of running out of time, and I don't want the AI to actually make me a selection here because that would kind of suck. So let's go to offer trade here, and then we will go to see who has interest in a good chunk of these picks, which most teams probably would. But let's see. Add all those. Yeah, everybody pretty much has interest in it. So who do we want to send these to? Probably like an Eastern Conference team or something. Like, let's send it to Carolina. And Carolina, do you have a pick for next year that you'd be willing to give up? You don't really want to give up your second for next year. Don't really want to give up anything. Okay, we'll take a look at a different team then. Columbus is still technically west at this point. Same with Detroit. We could go to Florida, I guess. Florida doesn't have a second rounder on the block. They don't have their third. Is there any team that actually has a second or a third they'd be willing to move? Montreal's a decent team, but they do have a lot of thirds for next year's draft, so this might be the best point to send it. So we will go for Colorado's third since it has the most value, I guess. Looks like we could get multiple third-round picks. Maybe I can get a second-rounder, which would be kind of ridiculous, but yeah, I could easily get a second-rounder, but you know what? I'm not going to cheese it. I don't feel like cheesing AI today. I'm going to take 2 third-round picks back for all this junk, basically, instead of a second-rounder. I know I could definitely cheese the AI and get like a second or something, but these 4ths and 5ths and 7ths are going to be barely anything, probably. Maybe it is going to be something, but let's just do this trade. Boom. There we go. So we get 2 third-round picks back for a slew of picks that we don't really need, so I don't mind that. Let's assimilate to the end of this draft, and that is the draft class. So I would say pretty decent. I think we're going to do a little fun thing just because I haven't done this in a bit. Maybe I did do it last year, I don't remember, but let's go to the 2017 NHL draft and see who we would have technically drafted at these positions. I like doing it just for a little bit of fun, just to kind of see if we would have drafted an actual player that had a long career or something like that. And then maybe we could say, hey, maybe these players are certain players. So the 18th overall selection when we took Hartikainen ended up to being in real life in 2017 at Urho Vakanainen. So, I mean, Vakanainen's okay, but he's not insane. 48th overall with our selection, we took Coleman. He technically would be Alexander Volkov, which I remember that guy briefly from playing in the NHL. Didn't have a long career. 49th overall, we took a goaltender in Wilford. That's actually Mario Ferraro, which is kind of interesting. 63rd, we got that low lead steal in real life. It was Fabian Zetterlund, so that's actually a pretty decent one there. I do not mind that. So that's actually kind of realistic. I wouldn't say Zetterlund is a low lead player, but Romano being kind of Zetterlund is kind of neat. Then we took Cool, who was that lowly grinder, 78th overall. In real life, the Edmonton Oilers actually did have the 78th overall pick that year. And guess who they took? They took Stuart Skinner, which obviously Stuart Skinner in real life, maybe we could say Wilford Stuart Skinner just because it's the same draft class. I'm not too sure. But yeah, Stuart Skinner, good at times, bad at times, kind of all over the place. But decent goalie during the regular season. Playoffs, he's good at times. But other times he's very bad. Then we also took Peckham 79th overall. That became, in real life, Lane Zablocki, who never played an NHL game. Never even heard of that dude. So, anyways, that's the 2017 draft class. So, I would say a decent-ish draft for us. Grabbed a couple low leads that could pan out. And obviously, the first-round pick's decent. I don't really like that 20-year-old top 6 forward, but maybe he becomes something. Maybe he does. All right, so we got some AHL coaches to re-sign, and once those are re-signed, then we will get to re-signing our players. I don't know how much it's going to cost us to bring back a lot of people, but I'm hoping it won't cost us too much. Obviously, Brock Nelson's the big one to bring back this offseason. A lot of other guys I think are RFAs, so it shouldn't be too bad. It shouldn't be too bad. All right, so these coaches hopefully will come back for Springfield, just because Springfield needs good coaching. And we have a lot of scouts to bring back. God damn. We have like at least 10 scouts, it seems like, around. So we'll try and get them all back. That way our scouting pool is still good. Because I feel like we have some decent scouts. Obviously, some of them haven't been finding good players, but other ones have found some decent low lead steals for us. So got to make sure we bring them all back. So that way we can make sure we continue to draft well, even when our team is doing well. Because eventually at some point, some of these replacements are going to be making the NHL, and we're going to have to make some tough decisions. Hopefully I could get some guys back for their entire careers pretty much, but who knows how much of the time we have left in the series anyways too, because obviously it's by the time this episode goes up, we're only a couple days away from August, so... let's see, Sawchuk, we'll get you back. I think there's a couple other ones as well. Komisarek, nope. Denisov, nope. Callahan, nope. Moroza was definitely one. Yep, I remember that one. And then Telkvist, no. Bolt, yes, we got to get back the Bolt. Landon Bolt. And then Tuomainen, no. Actually, yes, I almost forgot about Tuomainen. It just took a bit because of lagged. All right, so those are all the scouts dealt with. Let's see what we got re-sign stage-wise. Like I said, I think the only big UFA pretty much is Nelson, if I remember right. But let's go to RFAs to start here. I think we're going to just qualify pretty much all of our RFAs just because it's easier that way. We might let go of some of the RFAs in the AHL potentially just to free up roster space. But, yeah, we'll qualify a lot of these type of guys. Unless they want a two-way deal, maybe. Like, Colton Parayko wants a two-way deal, so I'll just offer him a two-way deal because two-way is easy to move out, too. Like, we could definitely trade some of these dudes if we want. CC already accepts, which is nice. But we might as well try and get everybody as punch possible back for the AHL. Just because the AHL team is relatively good, but they haven't won a Calder Cup yet. So Shaw's getting close to the point where I'm probably going to want to let him go, but not yet. Legwand will bring you back as well. And that's all the RFAs dealt with other than the goaltenders. We'll bring back Dorsett, even though he's not great, just because he's got trade value. And then Ruskovich as our backup. How many years do I want to sign him for? Just 1 year again? Yeah, we might as well just sign him for 1 year again. He is a pending UFA, but we obviously, in 1 year, maybe McClemont's ready to take that backup job, so let's just do it. And there you go. He's already back on board. All right, so UFAs, what do we got here? We have a lot of prospects that aren't going to really pan out. Most of them are prospects that are UFAs, which is funny. So Reynolds, who's a low top 4, 69 at 20 is not bad. But I feel like I said we have too much players in the minors. We're going to just let go of some of these dudes. Same with Delorier. That draft class wasn't the best for us before, so... Lally Birdie, he's 65 low lead at 22. Since he's got low lead potential, we'll sign him, but that's the only reason. Doesn't really look like he's going to pan out. Hansen's medium top 60, 64 at 20. He was a 4th round selection. We're going to let him go. He does have potential, but eh. And then Marcoux is also another guy that's probably not going to pan out as a low lead, but we might as well give him a chance. Vichy is a UFA in the AHL. I feel like we do have to free up some roster space in the minors. Vichy's kind of close to being a depth defenseman in the NHL level. Very good goal-scoring defender this last season. 23 goals. But we do have a lot of defensemen. So I think we're going to unfortunately let go of Vichy, even though he's a decent AHLer. I think we got to free up some roster space. And then Brock Nelson, obviously being the UFA, he's the only one that we need to give a lot of money to, probably. And right now he wants a 6-year deal at 4.4. Doesn't have a lot of organizational interest. Does have a modified no trade in this deal. I think that's an easy deal for me. 4.4 is not that bad for a second line center. And since it's modified, at least we could still move him out. So let's give him what he's asking for and see if he'll accept it, because I would not mind having him on that price point. So we'll advance today and see if he accepts that, because obviously he's the big one to re-sign. And then our RFAs, we won't have to really deal with too much at this point, which is nice. We could definitely trade some of them away to free up roster space if we need to. Brock Nelson will accept the offer, so that's good to see. Dolan rejected, which is weird. Dorsett accepted. Parayko accepted. So Dolan's kind of rejecting at the moment. We'll just give him a little bit more money to accept that, just because it should be easier that way. And then like these guys, I'm not too sure. We have probably too much people that are listed as fourth liners. We might have to make some decisions if we want to move some people away. Yakupov's pretty good, I think, at this point. We could definitely still hold on to him. But once again, there's a lot of players on this roster. So it looks like Dolan accepted that contract. We'll find out in a second here. Yes, he did. Perfect. And all those guys are qualified, which means we are good to advance to the free agent portion and see what there is available to us. So let's advance the free agency, see if any of our RFAs accept before the free agency portion opens up. And hopefully there's some interesting names this year in free agency, because obviously it's always fun when the AI goes ham in the offseason and picks up some random players that you wouldn't expect. All right, so Nichushkin accepted the qualifying offer, which is nice. Same with Brock McGinn and Sven Berchi. So we only have one RFA, I think. Looks like our AHL coach is rejected, which kind of sucks, but we could bring some more in next episode. But looks like we only have one RFA at the moment, which is pretty good. And we do have a lot of cap space as well, $20.6 million. And yeah, we're just waiting on Nail Yakupov, who doesn't really want a lot. So I think I might already give him a 3-year deal like he was asking for. So let's just lock this down by a little bit, because he does have the organizational interest. 3 years at $14.50. We'll see if he accepts that next episode. But I think we definitely need to think about if we have too many players on this roster when we get into free agency. Like, we might not need to sign anything, because at the moment we have McKinnon, Cameron, Nelson, Marcoux, Jenner. So that's already 5 forwards. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It's not really that bad, I guess. But then there's also Yakupov, 14. Technically, Schultz could be a depth forward. So I think we might actually already have a good amount of forwards, unless we want to trade people away, which we potentially could do. So forwards look good. Defensively, we have our defensive core pretty much set in stone. Parayko as a depth defenseman might not be a bad idea. So I don't think we need much defenseman. We could also use Rodriguez next year, though, too, which would open up a roster space if we had to trade somebody away. And then goaltending is fine, too. So I don't know if we really need to sign too much, but we might need a cap whale, because we are going to have a lot of cap space available to us. So if we go to propose trade right now, actually, are we cap compliant? No, we're not. We're below the floor. Once Nail Yakupov accepts, I don't think we'll even be there, so we probably need to bring in somebody and give them like maybe 3 or 4 million, but I don't think we actually need to sign much this offseason. So final few things we got to do. Let's take a look at the available free agents, and then we'll take a look at the trading block, and then that'll be it for this episode. So in terms of free agents this year, the big name free agents in terms of goalies, let me actually remove my face so you guys can kind of see everybody that's available. The big name free agent goaltenders are Yaroslav Halak, Pekka Rinne, Ilya Brzgalov, and Semyon Varlamov. There's also guys like Jake Allen, who's only 26, but decent free agent crop for goalies. Also Jacob Markstrom, too, at 81 overall, so decent goaltenders. Rick DiPietro is finally heading to free agency, so the New York Islanders are finally free from his contract, which is interesting. He doesn't really want a lot, but obviously we're not bringing in goalies, but kind of funny to see Rick DiPietro there. Peter Mrazek's there at 25 years old. Damn, he didn't really pan out. From a defensive standpoint, let's look at right D-men. So the best right defenseman heading to free agency is Justin Schultz. Tyson Barrie's already heading to free agency too at 25. So a couple young defensemen on the board. That's interesting. Aside from that, though, there's like not really a lot of good right-handed defensemen. Like Franson's there, Spurgeon's there, but a lot of these guys are kind of like top 6 and barely top 4s. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. From a left defensive standpoint, the best is Andre Sekera. There's also Jake Gardner, so it looks like the Ducks lost both Gardner and Schultz, which is interesting. Guess they don't have a lot of cap space. There's also Matt Carl, Matthias Ekholm, Dane Hamhuis, Nick Leddy. Goddamn, I said Hetty for some reason. There's also Jeff Schultz. So Jeff and Justin Schultz are free agents at the same time. Interesting. Okay, so there's the defenseman available. And then in terms of... Wait, why? Who is this guy? A generated guy? Never heard of this dude. Yeah, it's a generated guy for sure. Dorian Estrada. Anyways, in terms of right wingers for free agency, there is Justin Williams. So after a few years playing with Crosby and Malkin, he is heading to free agency, and he was very good in Pittsburgh. Absolutely insane in Pittsburgh. And yeah, he's won Stanley Cups as well, or one Stanley Cup at least. Justin Williams is interesting, but obviously we aren't trying to bolster our offense that much. I don't think he's also very costly, $10.9 million. There's also Josh Bailey. I was like, wait a second. Tyler Kennedy, Jordan Eberle heading to free agency after we dealt him to Boston, which if you wanted to know his stats in Boston, 7 points in 18 games, and they did not make the playoffs. So poor Jordan Eberle. Yeah, not a lot of good right wingers. There's solid right wingers, but yeah, it looks like this free agent crop is definitely weirder than I expected. All right. From a left wing perspective, there's Evander Kane already headed to free agency. That's interesting. 25 years old. Not that we want a problematic player on our team. Or imagine bringing Kane into this team early. That'd be funny. Obviously now in real life he's in Vancouver, but Jason Zucker's there. Rafi Torres. Bring Rafi Torres back to Edmonton so he could help us go far in the playoffs again. Jeff Tambellini would be funny as well, just because I think Steve Tambellini used to be the GM of the Oilers, if I remember right, which is his father. So there's that. In terms of centers, I did see that Eric Stahl's available. Yep, Eric Stahl's back in free agency again, so that's a huge free agent compared to the rest of the free agency crop. He only spent 1 year in Minnesota, and he's already back on the free agent market again, so curious on if he's going to get a longer-term deal next time. Kyle Turris is also a free agent this year, which is interesting. Who's interested in him out of curiosity? Ottawa's interested. The top team interested is for Kyle Turris is Ottawa. That's actually insane. Let me see. Did he play in Ottawa in this? I don't think so, right? No, just Buffalo and Phoenix. So the Ottawa Senators might get Kyle Turris around the right point in time. Derek Brassard's there too, speaking of which. Pavel Datsuk's a free agent. All right, so it looks like centers, there's some better ones out there. But yeah, definitely an interesting free agent crop. Not as strong as some of the other ones we've seen. Is there any big RFAs out there? Ryan Nugent-Hopkins at the moment. Bo Horvat, Laurent Dauphin. Left wings, Jeff Skinner, Toby Reeder. Right wing, obviously Yakupov for us. Ryan Murray and Connor Carrick. And then goaltending-wise, Connor Hellebuyck needs a big contract. There's also Semyonov, who's generated, and same with Blunden. All right. So I don't know if there's any free agents that we really want to put our name into the hat for, but we probably need at least one just to make us cap compliant. So if you guys saw any funny names or something like that, maybe we could bring them in. Aside from that, final thing, we got to look at the trading block. Let's just see if there's any trade options out there. Because obviously we could make trades if we want, but it's not probably necessary. But still might as well just take a look in case. Just in case we wanted to bolster our team right now, which we probably don't need to. Because our young team should get some more growth before the season starts. I probably should do some off-season focuses in the next episode as well. Just because that way we could actually get guys growing a little bit more. Because I feel like we haven't done that in a couple of seasons. There's not too much on the block, to be honest, at this point, which is kind of surprising. A lot of players are... There's just a lot of like forward prospects and draft picks. It's not really stuff we need. So I don't even know what we could really upgrade on our roster if we really did want to upgrade something. Like, obviously, scoring more goals is the thing that this team needs, but I feel like Brock Nelson a full season here on that second line could help us enough already. And then guys like Max Pacioretty is probably low on morale. No, he's still listed as the third line scorer for, but he's a 77, so he's probably lost morale. But yeah, Pacioretty definitely didn't pan out as I was expecting when I made him in this game. New Jersey's got some good defensemen, but obviously our defensive core should be fine the way it is, unless we wanted to bring in a vet already. Rangers have some vets as well. Ottawa's got Jay Bouwmeester. That's a pretty good one. Ryan Miller's dropped off a cliff. Damn. I'm kind of surprised he's dropping off at this point already. But looks like he had a really good season last year in the AHL. Damn, I didn't realize he was already AHL bound. It's crazy. What else we got here? Alashemsky on the block again. He's moved around a bit since we traded him. David Booth, James Neal still on the block. I know some people were wrenching about bringing in James Neal last year, but looks like he didn't finish with the craziest season. And he's also been a little bit injury prone the last 3. So, and he's now signed for 3 years. But there's some decent players there with the Coyotes. Pittsburgh gets more prospects. San Jose, draft picks. St. Louis, nobody crazy. Tampa, nothing there. Toronto, Lee Stempniak's on the block, which is funny. Not Jay Bouwmeester, I'm saying Jason Pominville's on the block. That's a pretty good forward. I mean, Marcel Gotch. So there is options, but like I said, I don't think there's anything we drastically need to update. Roberto Luongo being on the block is kind of funny again. Definitely not as good as he used to be, but never won that Stanley Cup or got close to it in real life either, so Washington and that. Perfect. All right, so I don't think there's really any trades to make next episode. I don't know if there's really any signings to make unless we want to just bring in a cap whale. I think for the most part, we almost have to just kind of stay pat with our current roster and see how guys are developing and then kind of see if we actually need to make any signings or trades and stuff like that. So anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Edmonton Oilers Throwback 2010 Franchise Mode. So in next episode, we will take it to the 2017 free agency portion of the offseason. We'll see if we do anything, and we'll also start up the 2017-18 season and see how this team does. But I think obviously we're trending in the right direction. Obviously losing this last season to the LA Kings, I think was an okay thing. Hopefully next year we can kind of take that step where we get back to like the conference finals again, and hopefully this young defensive core continues to develop. So think down below, and I'll see you guys next time.